Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world, joining us for the fastest 15 minutes in food, connecting the dots with Dr. David Hughes. I'm Charlie Arnot with the Center for Food Integrity, and we are excited that you are joining us on this May Day. So happy May Day. We are starting the new month with you, and of course, our consistent guest, Dr. David Hughes. Our mission at the Center for Food Integrity is to build trust in today's food system. Part of that is sharing insights about the food system and what's on the mind of consumers. Dr. David Hughes is an essential part of that work. He is sought after as a speaker around the world. And is a prolific writer and speaker and one of the most well sought after people that I know in the industry. He's joining us today from the UK, but he won't be there for long. He's got some more extensive travel planned. I'm fairly sure the British Airways has a jet named just for him at this point in time. So, David, give us a little insight. Where are you headed?
Heading for Australia in about 10 days, and I'm there for the better part of the month. And I'm right across Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. It's a big old island, is Australia. In fact, it's close to the same size as the USA.
Yeah, fabulous, fabulous country. Good luck and safe travels. So there's a lot happening around the world this morning, and we'll touch on economic uncertainty affecting retailers, changes in the wine and beer markets, and then concerns about the evolving diseases affecting livestock. So a very diverse kind of set of topics we're going to talk today, but we're going to jump in on Easter. Easter was something we all celebrated recently, and it's a major holiday in the UK, and major holidays always involve food. So David, tell us about the food that's used in celebrating Easter in the UK.
Right, and yes, May Day it may be, Charlie, but as you said, Easter is long gone now. But Easter in the UK is very like Thanksgiving. It always strikes me as like Thanksgiving in the US, and as you say, it really focuses on that sort of family meal. And the classic Easter meal for us is lamb with all the winter vegetable trimmings, and lamb, of course, because it has Christian and historic meanings. It's the same right across Europe. You know, Easter is a big, big deal. So, for example, what's the food for that big meal? As I said, winter vegetables. So that's the carrots and the parsnips and the like. And then we have a classic dessert too, which actually is rhubarb crumble. I mean,
Hmm.
rhubarb went out of fashion, but it's coming back with a bang now. And we have rhubarb crumble and custard. And what always intrigues me that it's commercially produced in one part of the UK, in Yorkshire, which is one of our northern counties and one of our larger counties. And the Yorkshire rhubarb has got PDO status, which is
Wow.
protected designation of origin status. It's rather like the fancy Italian and French cheeses, which have their name stamped on them. Well, we have it for rhubarb, uh, and no, so it's a very very big time for us. And the supermarkets love to special over Easter, as they do indeed for you in Thanksgiving. So, for
Yep.
example, our lamb is sold at half price. That still makes it the most expensive meat. I'm always intrigued that it's even at half price, lamb is four times the price of chicken, for example.
Wow.
And then the winter veg, so carrots, parsnips, Swedes, which would be rutabagas, I guess, in the US, are down to 5 cents a pound. So, I mean, essentially, they're free goods. And you'd think that, on the one hand, farmers sort of like that because you can move a lot of produce and very, very quickly. But at the same time, they're concerned that if you put product out there at 5 cents a pound, that it just sends the wrong message. Consumers think 5 cents a pound is the real value, if you will,
Right.
and that it's overpriced for the rest of the year. And that's not the case. 5 cents is ridiculous, really. Mind you, if you take Swedes, if you take rutabagas, I don't know if it's the same in the US. They've got to be about that cheap to get people to buy them, for goodness. But there we go. So yes, we've done and dusted with Easter. And you'd mentioned, so let's pick up on wine and beer consumption. I think it's pretty much like the US. It's falling, I should say, falling right across Europe.
Yep.
And where I'm going next, even in hard drinking Australia, it's come right down. Actually, for 2024, wine consumption globally was the lowest that it's been in decades. And
Hmm.
why is that? What's happening? Is suddenly are we all off alcohol? Well, it's for a variety of reasons. Of course, tariffs have had an immediate impact
Hmm.
and have been disastrous in terms of exports to the USA from France, from Italy, and no doubt from Australia too. But also consumers, we can see this right around the world, have got this sort of health and wellness focus. And there seems to be, it's more acceptable now to socialize without alcohol. And of course, there are alternatives. In various countries in Europe, for example, marijuana is becoming legal and it's seen as being an option. Okay, it's perhaps less heavy on the liver, if you will. And in particular, if we look across the consumer from an age point of view, that Generation Z seem to be leading the charge. It
Yep.
seems unlikely, doesn't it? Young folk leading the charge in drinking less alcohol. But they seem to be on that. And they're pushing, well, certainly in Europe, certainly in the UK, dry January, or let's try a sober October. I love that phrase. But Charlie, I've just looked at some really interesting American research from Rabobank, which actually says, hang on, let's not assume that alcohol consumption is drifting away. And they believe that Gen Z alcohol consumption will jump up as they reach their mid 30s. And why down now, they ask? Well, and this is so commonsensical. It's down now because they're short of money now
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they feel pinched. And the other thing which really intrigued me is that, particularly for males, they use the phone more rather than direct socializing. And so that sort of cuts back, if you will, their opportunity to drink with their mates. And then this one I really like is that because parents often know where their kids are because they've got them on the phone, so to speak,
Right. Right.
so that it's more difficult to tell a little lie. You can't say, I'm at Maria's house when the parents say, no, you're not, you're in the pub, for goodness
Yeah.
sake. But it's already changing the market in Europe, and not least one of our biggest brewers from Denmark is Carlsberg, and they've acquired Britvic, which is one of the UK's major non-alcoholic drink producers and distributors. And of course, that makes a lot of sense. So Carlsberg said, if we've got less beer on our wagons, we may as well fill it up with other drink. It's going to the same place often as not, to the pubs and to the restaurants. And so now Carlsberg has become the largest multi-beverage supplier in the UK. But mind you, and also Carlsberg, like a lot of the brewers, has launched a non-alcoholic beer, but it's one with a particular star on it. It's called, they're calling it the best transported beer in the world, probably. I mean, what they're doing is linking back to their former advertising slogan, we produce the best beer in the world, probably. And why is it the best transported beer? Because it's only shipped by electric freight transport. So,
Interesting.
I think that's sort of cute. Whether that's mass market is another matter. And then the last one, if you want to reduce guilt with a glass of red or white wine, I was much taken by there's a UK company called Frugal Pack who have now got a paper bottle for wine. It looks like a bottle, but it's made of 94% recycled paper. It's 5 times lighter than glass. It's 6 times lower in carbon footprint, and it's now available. This is not an advertisement. It's now available in Target. In about a
Ah,
thousand of their stores in the USA, but it was launched in the UK 2 years ago, and it's done extraordinarily well. So yes, alcohol consumption down, but I think we're still out whether that will recover as the young age group Gen Z, once they get a bit more money in their pocket, then they may well up that consumption.
yeah, fascinating. And I think one of the things that's contributed to that is the improved quality of alcohol-free beer. It
Yes.
used to be really, really bad, and now
Yes,
the major
it is.
brewers have come up with product that is not beer, but it's much closer to beer in terms of the user experience, and I think that's going to help contribute to the ongoing expansion of that category as we think about what's going to happen with alcohol. I'm fascinated by the paper bottles. I'm going to have to go to our local Target to see if they have that because it blows my mind to think about a bottle of wine being in a paper bottle. So that will be
Yes.
interesting to see how the market adapts to that.
I've bought it and I think it's good.
Oh, nice. Nice recommendation. Excellent. Okay, moving on to our second topic, one that many folks are talking about and pretty consistently, tariffs and trade talks. Now, one factor among that is driving economic uncertainty, especially in food and agriculture, as you think about supply chains being completely restructured and what's coming in and what's going out and who's going to be able to export and who's going to be able to import. What are you seeing in the UK?
Right. Well, I can tell you one thing that the competitive market environment in grocery retailing in the at the supermarket end in the UK is brutal at the moment. But I should remind you that when I look at the USA grocery retail market environment, then you're particularly regional. When I lived in the US and we had our business in Florida, our major customer was Publix, and like Publix was number one. Yes, it's a big deal too in, say, Georgia, but you don't get Publix in California, for example.
Hmm.
Well, in the UK market, we're a distinctly national market. If I take our top eight supermarkets, then they're everywhere throughout the UK. And what's happened is that our number three retailer, which is called ASDA, ASDA, it used to be owned by Walmart. And actually, they still own, I think, about 10%. But they've been suffering recently and they've been leaking market share. And so they made a big announcement in April saying, right, we're going to claw that back. We're lowering prices across the board. And that's provoked retailer number one for us, which is Tesco, to say, right, we're bracing for a price war with our rivals. And intriguingly, this really spooked the stock market, the share
Huh.
market, and the Tesco's share price dropped by 20%. It's recovered a
Wow.
little, but still people say, oh, things are going to be rough out there. And it's, for my mind, it's sort of indicative of general nervousness in the stock market right across Europe. And a lot of that has got to do with what's happening in the USA and your new tariff policies. And so firms, certainly in the food industry, big and small, they're sort of, if they lose that lovely word, discombobulated, really uncomfortable about the commercial world. And that's all around President Trump's tariff policies. Plus, of course, we had some heavy duty government taxes arrive in the last 3 months, which have on putting up national insurance, etc. And you can see, as our people look around the world, they see that there's worldwide economic struggles. I mean, are we heading for a recession? Oh dear. So companies don't want to make business decisions right now, big business
Hmm.
decisions. They're not hiring staff. They're not making the extra investments, and it's really uncomfortable. For example, on staff in the UK, there's 1 million young people who aren't in education, training, or employment at the moment. I mean, what are they doing? Uh, and they're not getting employment because in supermarkets and in food service, where that was a good first job, if you will, for
Sure,
a
sure.
lot of those who were sort of relatively untrained. But they're saying, no, we don't want to hire on. And so it's that nervousness and it's slowing down growth. That's not good news, frankly.
Yep, yep, that's a challenge, and we continue to see that. One of the other things that I think we're likely to see is an increase in the gray market, where product from China can't enter the U.S. In an economically viable way, that there's no reason it couldn't go to another country, get relabeled under the origin of that country that has a lower tariff, and then find its way into the U.S. So the economics are going to change behavior as they often do, and particularly in a time of uncertainty when it's very, very difficult to make long-term plans because we don't know what the future is going to hold.
I think actually in our market, I agreed, Charlie, that I was thinking about this and soy imports into the EU and UK. Uh, we have, as does the EU, very strict regulations are to prove that the products haven't caused deforestation or
Right.
land degradation in the sourcing country. And actually, that was pointing the finger at Brazil. And now, given if there's a tit for tat on tariffs and we bang a big tariff on US soy imports, then it's going to switch to Brazil. And there's a lot of companies who've made big statements about saying, no, we won't use that nasty Brazilian soy because
Right.
of the destruction of the Amazon. I wonder if suddenly and quietly it will change its point of origin. Now, it's a
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah, it's the unintended consequences, the knock-on effects have yet to be fully understood for certain. Okay, our last question of the day, our last topic of the day, rather, is one that is a great concern to animal agriculture, and that's the spread of animal disease and the evolution that we see in animal disease, whether it's zoonotic diseases or disease being transmitted across geographies. So, what are livestock producers in your part of the world doing, and how are they affected, David?
Right. Well, in general, they're worried. I mean, the human pandemic may be over, but it's far from over, if you will, as far as livestock is concerned. I mean, of course, in the US, you've had a real impact with AI, with avian influenza. And its impact on your egg prices, for example.
Yep.
And certainly avian influenza, it's a big deal across the UK at the moment. And it's a worry that, can we get our hands around it? Let's take with swine, with hogs, African swine fever. It's not rife, but it is well evident across Europe and, of course, in Africa. And you think back, was it 7 years ago? China's massive hog herd, the
Hmm.
population was close to obliterated by African swine fever, and it's still recovering now. So there's still in the hog business is real concern. For us, blue tongue is a disease, and it's particularly a disease of sheep, and it affects for the ewes, for the breeding sheep. It caused deformity in their lambs. It's caused by little midges, which you call no-see-ums, and as I said, they bite the sheep, and the lambs are born deformed. And we've had a whole sort of rash of that too. Then let's move on. It sounds awful, this, doesn't it? That TB, tuberculosis, is endemic in dairy cattle in England, not in Scotland, interestingly, but in England and Wales. And actually, we have a remedy which is extraordinarily controversial, as it involves culling the badger population,
Huh.
which is seen as a TB carrier. Uh, and then foot and mouth disease. I mean, good Lord, I hope that doesn't return. But there are incidences across Europe. And so, for example, individuals, not companies, but individuals are not allowed to bring meat or cheese from the EU into the UK in their cars, etc. That's a sort of start to try and get some handle on it, and for good reason. I mean, 24 years ago, I remember it so well. I live on the Welsh border. It's a very strong sheep area in the UK. We had a disastrous foot and mouth disease outbreak, and we killed 6.5 million animals. And it is burned into my mind that if I got in the car and if I went in our little farming areas around where I live, it was just dreadful. There were pyres, not piles, pyres of sheep being just burnt. And it was so devastating for the
Yeah.
farmers who had built up breeding herds, sometimes over generations, but they were immensely proud. Let's fingers crossed. But I just see around the world that this seems to me it's happening on a more regular basis, and we need to get our handles on them.
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and as you noted, the emotional toll on farmers for mass liquidation is sometimes unaccounted for. Clearly, we can calculate the economic impact, but the emotional impact is very difficult to calculate. Well, David, safe travels as you continue to work your way around the world. Thank you for joining us today for the fastest 15 minutes in food. We will be back again on June the 5th. So join us
And
then. And
right,
until
Charlie,
then,
as I said, I'll be in either in Australia or Thailand, and but both of those have very strong food industries, and it's always intriguing to see, what are the developments there. And I hope I get an opportunity to just say a few words about it.
that will be fascinating. We'll connect with you when you are somewhere else in the world, as you frequently are. So thanks again for joining us for the fastest 15 minutes in food. We will see you again on the 5th of June. Between then, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye now. Bye bye.